I was to tell you that you could grow your community by not talking to some people? So let's first talk about what community is, right? Usually it's a geographic area where people work and live. And while this is one definition, it's not the only definition, right? A broader definition could be this. It could be a group of people with a common set of needs, attitudes, behaviors, right? When you think about it this way, it transcends cities, countries. It's global, right? It's like global community. Now, organizations know that they need to foster communities, but what they might not know is that there's a key to growing. So, over the last 25 plus years that I've been working with very different companies around the world, there is one thing that I've seen. The successful companies treat different customers different. They treat different customers different. And in business, what we call this is segmentation. And they do this by taking an outside-in approach. They talk to their customers, they observe their behaviors, and they uncover a very rich set of needs. In fact, they find that there are groups of people that have common needs, but different than another group, right? So customers love it when you segment them. I mean, think about it as us, right? Wouldn't you love it when a company just gets you and they understand your needs, they take the time, and not only that, but then they satisfy your needs? That's pretty great, right? So it really does make sense that any organization can benefit by segmenting. But let's first see what segmentation looks like. We'll take dogs, right? Who here has a dog? Okay. And for those of you out there, then, okay, a large dog? Couple. A medium dog? Okay. And how about a small dog? Okay, so we have a couple. Okay, this is very interesting, but it's classification. It's what-based? It's descriptive, right? It doesn't really give us insights. But now, if I was to ask those of you that have dogs, do you know your dog's birthday? Okay, if you do, all right. And do you buy a present for your dog? Okay, this is segmentation. This is attitudes and behaviors that you have about your pet, right? And so let's take an example. Let's use relationships with your pets we're going to do two segments. One is, my dog is my child or my grandchild, right? Come to mommy. The other one is, dog is dog, right? In the first one, let's look at this. This dog is not only part of the family, it's part of the cheering squad, right? Look at the pins. And I never knew you could put pins on a dog like that. And the toys, right? And this dog probably gets incredibly great dog food and treats, and it sleeps in a very comfortable bed, and maybe even with the parents. Right? And it goes to the veterinarian often, right? Whenever there's a need for this, right? Let's look at the second segment. Now, this is the same size dog. It could even be the same breed. But the relationship that the parent has with this animal is different, right? And they still love the dog, but maybe the dog sleeps in the backyard or in the barn, and it gets just a big bag of dog food, right? And it might go to the vet only when it's absolutely necessary. So if you are a veterinarian or a pet supply company, this type of segmentation might help you, right? It might help you focus and provide different offers for these two different groups. So sometimes I get this, Mary, I know that segmentation sounds interesting, but you don't understand. I don't have time for that. I'm running a business, right? Well, there is a trap. And the trap is, if you do a one-size-fits-all, it's dangerous. So let me illustrate this, all right? So I'm selling tea. And you guys love hot tea. And you guys love cold tea. but I just want to come out with one tea, right? So I take the average, and what do I end up coming out with? Lukewarm tea, right? Who wants to buy my lukewarm tea? Nobody, right? I'm irrelevant. So that's the danger is when you have one offer and you're providing it to two very different groups, you end up really providing nothing that people are going to buy. So is there a chance in your community that you might be serving up a little bit of lukewarm tea? So I want to tell you one of my most favorite stories that brings all of this together. I was writing a book with my business partner, Tom Spitali, and we came across a gentleman, and his name is Bob Gergen. Bob Gergen, he worked for a medical device company that sold big equipment. And what Bob said was, he says, you know what? Through an acquisition, we ended up with this, a home pregnancy test kit. And he said, we didn't know what to do with it. So we went out and we sold, and it was a miserable failure. He said, it just didn't work. So he said, my small team, with not a lot of money, not a lot of time, we came back and we said, okay, it has to be something about the customer now. And they started coming up with, age, income, religion. Those are all classifications, right? Then he said, it had to be something about attitudes and behaviors about being pregnant, their desire, right? When you think about it that way, he said, we came up with two segments. There are some women that really, really want to be pregnant. And there are some women that really, really don't want to be pregnant, right? And so he said it was very simple. He said it was just two segments, but it was enough to give us insights. And so by doing that, he said we took the ones that wanted to be pregnant. He said what we did was we came up with a product called Conceive, right? And it was pink and blue package, and it was, of course, next to the baby stuff, right? And it was $9.99. For the people that didn't want to be pregnant, this was a very discreet purchase, right? They didn't really want anyone to know about this. So that product they named Rapid View, and it was over by the condoms, right? And that product sold for $6.99. So what Bob said was, he said, we pretty much ignored the people that didn't want to be pregnant. He said we sold it, but we put all of our promotional efforts into the people that wanted to be pregnant. And by doing that, he grew their business by $4 million in just 3 years. It was a very big success for their group. The ironic thing about this is that test strip, it was exactly the same. So everything that they did around it was different, but the core product was exactly the same. So this seems like it's pretty simple with a product, but could segmentation help in a more complex situation? Let's just say a severe disease in a community, like depression. Can segmentation help in that case? And you know what? It did. In Japan, in the 90s, they were suffering from significant depression. In fact, there were high suicide rates. And when I was there was netting around the tall buildings. And I said, what is that? And they said, oh, that's jumper netting. So it was bad, right? And Prozac was the antidepressant that was being sold around the world, but it wasn't sold in Japan. And the reason is because depression was taboo. You couldn't talk about it. And you can't sell something that you can't talk about, right? So one team, it was a small team. They were selling an antidepressant called Paxil. And they said, let's look at what the market is, right? Attitudes and behaviors about depression. And what they found was there are 3 segments. This first segment, this group was significantly depressed. Right? And they were dangerous to themselves and they were dangerous to society, so they were on a treatment. The other end of the spectrum, this group, they were just mildly irritated, but it wasn't enough to really impact them. They weren't seeking any treatment. But this middle group, they were trying to somehow find help. And if they went to the doctor at all, the doctor would say, well, you really got to stop the smoking and lay off the drinking a bit too. but they didn't have anything tangible for them, right? So this Paxil team focused just on one part. Now, remember, this is a whole community, but they just decided to focus on a portion, this one segment. And what they said was, okay, if it's taboo to talk about depression, then we need to reframe that first. And that's what they did. They said, it's really like getting a cold, right? And it's called corpora no causae. Does your soul have a cold? Anyone can get it, but if you take care of it early, it'll be just fine. And so by focusing on this patient and doctors that took care of these types of patients, they were able to grow the market. They were able to generate over $400 million in just a couple of years. And the most important thing is they saved people's lives. So it really, really did work. I'm hoping that what you're starting to see is the power of segmentation, right? One final question then is how about in situations where we're a nonprofit? Does it really work there? Well, since we're at the Ferguson Library, I thought it would be fun to see if we could actually do it with this place, right? So again, it's when we're segmenting, it's attitudes and behaviors. So what about attitudes and behaviors about being involved with the library? Okay, so if we take an outside-in approach, there's probably, we're going to say there's 3 segments. This first segment, they want to enrich themselves, they want to enrich their family, so they're highly involved, right? They're going to the events, they want to be a part of the events, they're figuring out the maker space, they're checking out books and movies still, right? And they are donating. But what they're donating is probably a lot of their time and hopefully some money, right? This second group here, they're probably not utilizing the resources as much, but they believe that the library is critical to a thriving city. So they go to the novel affair and they hopefully write some big checks, right? Then there's this third group. If we were out on Bedford Street and we said, how do you feel about being involved with the library? They may look at you and just go, I don't know, where's the library? They just have no interest. They just don't care. So if the library, we assume, have limited resources, then they have to figure out where they're going to allocate that. So they may take that first group, the highly involved, and they may spend 70% with that group, meaning that they might continue to invest in technology and events like this, right? The second group, now keep in mind that they love going to those galas, so you might take 30% of your efforts and put that against a really cool fundraisers and make sure to give them the information back that says this is what your money is actually providing for not only for the library, but for our community. And remember, we've done 70%, 30%, so that leaves 0% for that last segment, right, the non-involved. It would dilute our efforts with these two if we spent any money or time here. So that's an example of what a nonprofit might do. So if you're trying to grow your community, I encourage you to try to segment. Keep it simple. You talk to some customers, you observe their behavior, and then what happens is you see the patterns, and you'll possibly find that there's one segment that makes a whole lot of sense for you, and you foster that segment, right? I truly hope that you will find that segmentation is a key to growing your community. Thank you.